It's an odd quirk in this movie that the main character gets the summer to himself and also happens to have a pretty nice little apartment in which to enjoy that freedom. I wouldn't mind living there, even with a wife and a kid. But since they are away going crazy up there at the lake, he might as well indulge in the good stuff, especially good coffee. And if Richard Sherman were alive in the here and now, his best option for Jive-tastic, I guess that's a word, Java would be Sparkplug coffee. They have the premium stuff. These beans are excellent and will make the best coffee your mug has ever seen or contained. It's just elegant, and it's more convenient and flexible than other coffee options, including takeout. Sparkplug will make sure it's placed on the pretty little front stoop of both Americans and Canadians, and if you're a Canadian, the shipping costs are free. And hey, before you smoke that illicit cigarette that the wife doesn't know about, join the Autopilot Coffee Club. Pause or cancel anytime, but hit up the website that is sparkplug.coffee/HYES and give this product a try. Our HYES promo code will get you a one-time 20% discount, by the way. All right, so you've got a scrumptious coffee option. Now let's get to the scrumptious podcast option. Bev.
And action. Have you ever seen
The 7-Year Itch? Hi, movie monkeys, and happy end of July to our delightful audience as we bring you the 678th episode in this Have You Ever Seen podcasting series. We'll be doling out liberal spoilers today, so heads up for that. I'm the guy who talks to himself about often uninteresting things in his little head monologue there. Not me, Ryan Ellis. And here's my wife, the vivacious blonde who I'm assuming used to barge into other people's apartments and wow them whenever she felt like it. The one who's just elegant. Bev.
That's me.
She's elegant.
She says delicate, not elegant. That's just delicate.
I always heard elegant.
I thought she was saying delicate.
Oh, I have to look this up right now. We're going to have to literally
when
pause
she's
the
like,
podcast.
she's got the AC blowing up her shirt. That's just delicate.
Okay, I'm going to write an elegant and see what it comes
She says elegant at some point, but delicate is the one she keeps repeating that doesn't make sense because she's stupid. She may not know what the word delicate means.
I see elegant. I'm going to type in delicate now. I think it's elegant.
God, I really was hearing delicate, and I was like, is she just so stupid she's using that word wrong?
Oh, I see here, Film Site says, I think you're just delicate. The IMDb quotes, because this is the whole thing right now, when I type this in, Film Site comes up, Wikipedia. The IMDb quote says, a stare to nowhere, I think that's just elegant. I like elegant, you're saying delicate.
The scene that I looked up is where she's in those pink pajamas, and she's letting the AC blow up her top. She calls it delicate.
Be consistent, Marilyn. Well, there you go, Marilyn. Let's get this clear off the top. She's never named, I don't know why, but I don't want to just call Marilyn Monroe's character the girl for this entire podcast, which is how she's listed in the credits. So let's call her Marilyn. All right?
Yeah.
The girl might be called a few times, but basically we'll call her Marilyn. Okay, the coming attractions opinion question for The 7-Year Itch is not a fun one for what is a fun movie, but it is about Marilyn Monroe and many other people because which actor who died way too young, as Marilyn Monroe did, do you think would have had the greatest career if they were able to keep working until they were 70 or 80 or 90 or whatever, like Michael Caine or Ben Kingsley or those kinds of people? Some options. Well, Marilyn Monroe was 36. Chris Farley was only 33 when he died. Brittany Murphy and Bruce Lee were only 32. Heath Ledger was only 28. Sharon Tate was just 26. Jimmy Dean was only 24. River Phoenix was only 23. And then there's also, they're here, Heather O'Rourke from the Poltergeist movies, who was only 12 when she died. Go ahead, your option there, your choice. Or somebody else, maybe.
Yeah, the first person I thought of when you asked this question was River Phoenix, and I'm sticking with it. I think
Good
we
choice.
were really robbed of a talent that we've seen in his brother, who's one of the greats now.
Joaquin,
But
yeah.
man, he was incredible. Heath Ledger, close second. He did amazing work, and he was such an interesting actor. What a shame.
I think everybody I mentioned was really missed by the film community, especially Marilyn Monroe, of course, and Sharon Tate maybe, and so on. River Phoenix, like you just said. But my choice, Heath Ledger. For him to pull off Ennis and Brokeback, and then the Joker and the Dark Knight, that proved just how talented this guy was. That was in the span of 3 years. And he did that and a lot more before he was even 30. So they're all good choices I just mentioned, but I think we're missing out mostly on Heath.
He was making really gutsy choices, really interesting choices in the movies he was making and the people he was working with. the variety of roles he was taking. He had more of a chance to show what he could do than River Phoenix had.
That's true.
If he had died when he was 23, he would not be on this list. What, 10 Things I Hate About You? Yeah. Knight's Tale? You would remember that actor died, but
Monsters
he wouldn't
Ball,
be... Yeah, he wouldn't be legendary the way that he is now.
And yeah, Marilyn died so young, too. She was the oldest of the people I just mentioned, but she was still... What did I say, 36 years old? Yeah, 36. So that is extremely young.
Yeah, we were probably robbed of a great second and maybe third act of her career. Just kept getting better.
Okay, well, bring it back up here. No more death talk. Hot Time, Summer in the City was released by 20th Century Fox 70 years ago in the summer of 1955. It pulled in plenty of cinema goers, winding up 11th at the box office. And I mentioned it's a Fox movie, so I, as always... We'll complain about this when it comes up. Disney owns Fox now. They have for years. And here's another classic movie in the Fox library that's not on Disney Plus. Why not? Although our DVD looked fine. It looked pretty good. But Bev, the movie is 7 decades old. Please bring us up to speed on the plot by giving us the lowdown, the skinny, on the 7-Year Itch.
Tom Ewell is Richard Sherman, a very imaginative, middle-aged executive stuck in New York alone for the summer while his wife and kids spend the hot months in Maine. Marilyn Monroe is the beautiful young woman subletting the apartment above him. Richard valiantly fights temptation, with middling results, as he strikes up a friendship with the girl who enjoys his company and his air conditioning, and seems pathologically oblivious to the effect that she has on men. After a series of dangerously close calls, Richard manages to resist temptation and decides to join his family in Maine.
Or, in a nutshell, no one in history has ever felt this guilty about not cheating on his wife. He does kiss her a few times. She kisses him a few times on the lips. Not the greatest thing in the world. Some wives or husbands will lose their minds about that, I'm sure. But it doesn't go any further than that. Although apparently in the play, they do sleep together.
Billy Wilder almost disowned this movie because...
He had to compromise.
He had to compromise so much to make it match with the code. It was a very popular play, so they wanted to make it into a movie.
But it was risque.
The code wouldn't allow adultery to take place in a comedy where somebody doesn't get punished for it.
This movie pushes the envelope in a lot of ways, though, anyway, because you've got not even all that subtly implied gay neighbors above him.
Right, the interior decorators.
That live there above the Shermans. She's subletting, so they're the actual roommates. It sounds like they're gay and together. It's not blatantly said, but you can read between the lines, man. And then all that happens between the two main characters here with Richard and Marilyn. He had to compromise, but still, this movie's pretty risque for the 50s. Okay, Rotten Tomatoes on this movie. Not awesome, but fine, pretty good. 84% of critics like the film. There are 27 press reviews and 5 rotten. 76% of audiences. Those numbers are pretty low for Wilder. I don't even know where actually this ranks in his list as a director, but it's way down there. He had a few 100s and 95s and 98s and all kinds of things. But it's 7th for Marilyn Monroe, but she didn't make that many movies. So anyway, still 7th is not bad. The numbers, as I said before, has this 11th at the 1955 U.S. box office. Mr. Roberts, which I just covered, when was that? Oh, 2 weeks ago, right. Was number 2, and I'm not sure where Marty or Rebel Without a Cause were that year. I think they were relative hits. Rebel Without a Cause made the AFI's list, and Marty was the Best Picture winner of 55. Marty! Marilyn Monroe, Tom Ewell, or Tommy Ewell, as it says in the opening credits. He was never really known as Tommy. I don't know why they billed him that way in this movie. And Billy Wilder were up for major awards. Ewell even won the Golden Globe, comedy category, but no Oscar nominations for this film. It was 51st on AFI's Top 100 Laughs, right ahead of Ninotchka and Arthur, both of which were reviewed a year and a half ago. In fact, I think it was in consecutive weeks in February 2024.
We loved one and we hated the other.
I liked Arthur okay. I didn't dislike it like you did, but I didn't love it that much. Ninotchka is a great movie, though. And in a week, it's going to come up again because we're doing a special show. You'll hear about that at the end of this podcast. The 7-Year Itch was nominated for the 1998 AFI Top 100 list, but not the 2007 one. I'm a little bit surprised. I'm not saying necessarily it was all that worthy. I think Mr. Roberts maybe was in the same, I think it was actually in the same boat. First list, not the second one. Both were as worthy as a lot of other movies. This isn't one of the greatest movies ever, but why nominate it once and not the other time? All right, well, I know we've seen this before. We watched it together at a cottage. I think it was in 2014, the infamous vacation we had, Canada Day weekend, which for those who don't know is July 1st and then the 2nd, 3rd, 4th. We stayed when our friends left, and we had the fireplace on. It got so cold. But here's this movie that's talking about hot time, summer in the city, deadly hot days. They're not sweating as much as they probably should, but this is very much a middle of the summer type of movie. It was released that way. The whole story's about how hot it is. What do you think about this time?
It's very frothy and fun, an old comedy that actually makes me laugh. The sets are beautiful, the script is full of great, clever dialogue. I love the fantasy sequences. Tom Ewell and Monroe are the main attractions by a country mile. They're incredible. They're really funny and likable. They have pretty good chemistry, which compels me to forgive the fact that neither of them, especially Ewell, have convincing motivations at all. Their behavior is nonsensical at times. But I think the greatest contribution that this film makes is that it's just responsible for that iconic image of Marilyn Monroe. And if it weren't for that, we would not be talking about it today. I think it would have faded away.
Not faded away, but that is one of the most famous images ever in film history. And the funny thing about her standing on the subway grate and the wind going up from the subway passing by is that in the movie, it does happen twice. And the first time you see her skirt go up, only from not even really the waist, maybe about mid-thigh down. And the second time, the camera, I think, pans over as the subway's going by, and you see garbage come up from the grates, and then it's her skirt. And that's maybe the more famous part of this image, but it's not the one that if you look online, and they show it in Pulp Fiction, Tarantino's got a Marilyn Monroe character in his, what do they call that diner? The Jackrabbit Slims.
Jackrabbit Slims, yeah.
She's doing the thing where you could see her full body and everything. That's what everyone thinks of, but you don't actually see it in this movie. That's the funny thing about it. One of the most famous images isn't actually fully in this movie. You don't see her face, her upper half. It's only her waist, and really arguably thighs down.
They did press for the premiere that she stood on a grate and it blew up. And you can see full body images from that. So people use that image as, I think, the reference. Well, obviously more so than the movie, because you never see her head to toe.
And she wears a white dress, what they call a halterneck in that scene, but also she wears the white dress the night she first meets him.
Different white dress.
I know it's different, yeah, but she comes down to his place in the pink, not really pajamas, but more like a leisure outfit, changes into that beautiful white dress, but then later on is wearing a white dress again when they go to see Creature from the Black Lagoon. We covered that last year too. And that's, of course, when it leads into the subway going by. You've said before, you think the most iconic, not the best actor or actress, necessarily the most talented, whatever, but the most iconic actor of all time is Marilyn Monroe. We've only covered her twice before, and it's been a long time because she's briefly in All About Eve, and of course she's so great, as are Lemon and Curtis, Lemon especially, in Some Like It Hot, but they were AFI movies, so they're way back in our past. I thought we covered her in something. We haven't, not since then. This is obviously a good choice for that because it's maybe her most iconic movie, maybe even more so than those for her personally. What about that scene and what about her performance? Because it is Tom Ewell's movie, but everyone thinks about her when they think about this movie, even more so than Wilder, as big a name as he was.
I find her so charming and delightful.
And cute.
This is her appeal. She's like a sexy baby.
Yeah.
And she really pulls it off maybe better than anybody ever has before or since. What do I think of the fact that hot women who act like children are attractive to men? It makes me a little uncomfortable, if I'm going to be honest. And I don't personally find her sexy. I think she's the most beautiful woman that ever lived in Hollywood.
I don't think so. But
okay, fine. We can disagree about that. I think she's so beautiful. Everything. Her body, her face, the iconic hair,
she's on the list.
Her whole look.
Yeah.
But her whole persona, there's so much stuff about her. She's like the Beatles in a way, where it's like an overwhelming amount of
Beatles,
media
Elvis.
about her. Yeah, yeah. But when I do watch her movies, I'm like, I see that she's very good at this and that she's never annoying, even to me, a woman who finds it a little bit repellent that she seems to have like the wits of a fourth grader in this film.
In many movies, though, too, not just this one.
Oh, yeah, not just this movie. In this movie, she's like a manic pixie dream child. You talk about how they never name her. Why don't they just give her a name? And I thought maybe it's because there's the possibility that she's a complete fabrication of his imagination. We know he has this very active imagination.
He really does.
And she is not a person. She's either a fantasy for the audience, which many movies have written many characters that are completely unrealistic, but just like a fantasy fulfillment for the audience. It's possible that that's all it is and that she really is meant to be real. But they introduce the fact that this guy has an incredibly active imagination and is obsessed with this idea that he's tempted to cheat on his wife while she's away, but doesn't want to go through with it and can just maybe conjure this person out of thin air. I don't think the movie's really trying to tell us that, though, because other people see her and interact with her. So in cinematic language, she's real.
And Tom does too, right?
Yeah, at the end. So I don't really think that's the case, although if she were a figment of his imagination, yeah, I guess that would be cheap. Audiences typically don't like having the rug pulled out all that much, but it would certainly solve a lot of the plot problems in this film if she was just his imagination. As likable as Richard is. It's kind of hard to like him considering his conundrum is what?
You know what's important, though? They start the movie by showing, before we see any of these characters, whatever it's supposed to be, hundreds of years ago, I guess, the natives that were on Manhattan Island before we see these characters in Manhattan, they send their family away for the summer because it's so hot, supposedly, even then. Right away, they notice the pretty girls. And it's supposed to be just that funny. We didn't really laugh at that, but we get what they're going for there. But then when we see the modern day stuff, and Richard sending Helen and Ricky off to Maine on that train, and Ricky forgets his paddle, which is a running theme. And at the end, isn't he taking the paddle? The one thing he actually takes with him is a paddle, no clothes.
Yeah, maybe.
Just the paddle. Yeah. And they're going away. But Richard isn't necessarily thinking about, okay, I'm free. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to now. I'm going to do whatever bad things I want. But we see so many guys who are thinking that immediately. So the hundreds of years ago, natives were thinking that. The minute the wives have gone, and then so are the modern guys, including his boss, who talks about what he's been doing.
Yeah, it's like a jokey premise of the film.
But he's not
men.
But because he doesn't do anything wrong, because, yeah, he does sleep with her in the play, I guess. That's maybe how you get away with the fact that everybody else is doing bad things, but he's only tempted to. And look at the guilt he feels, though, for even thinking about it.
Well, the movie's trying to have its cake and eat it, too. And I think that's really where it falls apart. Am I rooting for him to get laid, to win the girl? Because it's played like a rom-com, and I catch myself rooting for him, she's only interested in friendship. She's grateful that he's married because she's like, great, I don't have to worry about you falling in love with me. Well, then if you believe the kiss at the end, which would be all well and good if the point of the story was for Richard to feel confident and attractive, maybe, but it's not. It's for him to make up his mind whether or not to be faithful to his wife. So the fact that she would have isn't really relevant at the end of the movie if he's decided, and she's like, you're such a nice guy, I'm going to give you a sexy kiss. Bizarre. But no matter how charming the movie is, it has to work pretty hard to make me root for infidelity.
Yeah.
And then traditionally a movie with this plot would either make the girl a femme fatale, a villain out to destroy his marriage, like in the movie The Women. Or you could make the wife the villain and root for him to escape this unhappy marriage. But when both women are sweet and faultless, the audience is narratively homeless. All you can do then is conclude that Richard is unlikable.
Here's a question for you, because we're talking about the morality of what he's thinking the whole time, which is, I'd like to sleep with her, but should I? Because he does make a move, he kisses her, and they end up on the ground. And she's not mad at him, because a lot of guys do this. Oh, it's okay. Now, in a modern movie, and it'd be a whole different story if she did this, but maybe she cuffs him across the face or something like that.
I think women were way more likely to slap men who kissed them in movies in the 50s. Now I think women would be, respect and safety. But back then it was about propriety. How dare you? I'm not that kind of girl.
Oh, no. Men force women to kiss them so many times. In some of the great movies.
They did then and they do now. But you say, well, back then they wouldn't have gotten a slap. They
so my
totally
question,
would have gotten
but here's
a slap.
my question is, here's my question. Do you think that if he actually made a full-on move to try to get her into bed, that she would be okay with that? Would she sleep with him?
It's implied at the end that she would have, yeah. Because she kisses him quite romantically, like she's interested.
Okay. I didn't really read that. Maybe
because she's completely inconsistent. She behaves crazy.
And it's funny, too, because she's actually in his presence, and the movie doesn't ever play off like it's a fantasy thing, but he has imaginations, very Christmas Story-esque with Ralphie.
Yeah.
Because in Christmas Story, Ralphie has so many fantasies about things he does. Part of the charm of that movie is that. And part of the charm of the movie here is that he fantasizes things that happen. He imagines Helen way more than we actually see the real Helen. We see the real Helen for maybe a minute.
Yeah, in total. At the very beginning, the phone call. I think that's it.
Okay, so maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but not much more than that. But we see her plenty in the movie. Evelyn Keyes has plenty of screen time. But it's almost always him imagining her, right down to him imagining her sitting there on that little stoop, the patio outside, not stoop, but the patio, and her just sloughing off the notion that he would ever cheat with the girl upstairs. Yeah, fine. Yeah, you could do that. She doesn't believe this at all. In his imagination, he imagines Marilyn as a femme fatale. He imagines Tom and Helen are together, even though they probably never were. When Tom shows up, the real Tom shows up, he's got more screen time in reality than Helen does. But when Tom shows up, at the end of the film, he's just trying to get the paddle.
Totally innocent.
He never did anything wrong.
No idea why Richard's mad at him.
And then, here's an interesting thing, too. What happens? He socks him in the face. What do we do after that?
Doesn't deserve it at all. Yeah, I know,
is he not going to come for revenge and maybe rat out Richard that this girl was in his place? I've got that down here. Let's go to what happens next right now. So Richard may have run off to Helen at the end, but they'll come home in September, her and Ricky, Richard will come back before that, I guess, to do his job again. Will he be fired, by the way? He's telling his boss, not asking. The boss already said, I can't free you up. It's a busy season here in July.
He's a tall white man with all his hair.
He'll be fine. But I don't know. He maybe could lose his job even. That's possible. But word's bound to get around that in those 2 weeks, Marilyn was living in their apartment, which she said they could do. She's pried up the nails to go between the 2 apartments as well. The landlord did that on purpose. These are 3 separate places.
For the summer. She destroys their floor. She has like a safe apartment to stay in. Then she opens up so that this man that she's known for like 24 hours can enter her apartment anytime he wants.
But it'd be cooler is why she did it. Anyway, so he comes back. Then he's going to answer for punching out Tom.
Yep.
And Tom saying, there was this girl in your apartment, this beautiful young girl who stayed there when you left. Why would she stay there? What kind of connection was this?
It's funny, he was afraid of getting caught, but he just kept making circumstances that would put him in a compromising position without actually being compromising. So he lets the super catch them, and then Tom sees them. Another thing she's completely clueless about is that propriety. Anybody would look askance at her hanging out with him at all. She never acknowledges, oh, maybe we should close the blinds, like neighbors could think something's going on that isn't. She's so guileless. Truly the wits of a child.
Not the first time, because the first time he sees her, she's wearing clothes, although not a lot of clothes. When she comes into the place, he's got to buzz her in. But then the next time he sees her is when the tomato plant falls into the chair he had just left. He was laying there, or lounging there, I guess, supposedly reading that book, the 7-Year Itch book, which is, of course, a subtext in the whole film, and actual text in the whole film, I guess, too. But he gets up, and then right away, that tomato plant crashes through and breaks the chair. It would have badly hurt him, probably. Oh, yeah. But when Marilyn looks over to see him down there, it is implied that she's not wearing any clothes, because she does say she's cooling her underwear in the icebox. And you could say underwear she's going to put on next. But all you see from her is maybe, I don't know, playing off Some Like It Hot, actually, which was 4 years later when we have that infamous shot of the light that plays with her neckline, which was pretty risque for 1959, too. But we see maybe a few inches below her chin. She could be wearing clothes, but doesn't seem to be.
And playing into the idea that it might be all his fantasy, her position leaning out the window like that with an exposed décolletage mimics the artwork in the book that he approves, the version of Little Women where he makes all their necklines lower.
Right.
And they're all leaning out of a window. So maybe being like, well, this is where he got the image in his head of a scantily clad young woman leaning out a window.
And yet Marilyn, through most of the movie, is not that scantily clad. The famous white dress in the subway scene or subway draft scene.
Those are not scantily clad dresses, but they are so sexy.
Well, the first dress she's wearing is the sexiest dress because it just hugs her body.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, all these people are obsessed with skinny people, probably from, I think, around the mid-60s, somewhere around there. Some model was really skinny, so then they've all got to, was it Twiggy? Mm-hmm. They've all got to look like this. I'd rather they all look like Marilyn Monroe, really, to be honest with you. And
who's very skinny.
Not compared to
She has an hourglass figure, but she's incredibly slim.
Not incredibly slim, but that's what I like about her.
Not in all of her movies, but in this movie.
Not Audrey Hepburn.
God, what do you think her waist is?
And I mentioned Audrey Hepburn, ironically, a couple years earlier. Wait, was it Breakfast at Tiffany's was... No, it was 61. It was many years later. That really should have been, and apparently he wrote it for, Truman Capote did, Marilyn Monroe in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Another movie that had to dumb down what it was doing, which is the two main characters are both prostitutes.
Another movie that isn't actually that great, and yet has one of the most iconic images in Hollywood
More
history.
famous than it is actually all that good. Although I think this movie is good, at least. Partly because it is pretty funny.
It's good.
We didn't laugh as much as I would have liked to think from a Wilder film that we would have, but we did laugh quite a bit.
It's frothy and fun. It goes by fast.
Tommy, or Tom, really, Ewell, who didn't have a big career, didn't do a lot of other movies, although he was in Adam's Rib a few years before this, several years before this. I covered that movie last year also.
He was a theater actor.
More of a theater actor.
He won the Tony, didn't he? For
this performance, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And they talked about Walter Matthau for the movie, and if Wilder got his way, it would have been Walter Matthau.
Really? I could see Jack Lemmon, but not Matthau.
Lemmon the same year was doing Mr. Roberts and then won an Oscar for that, so maybe he was becoming too big to have done... Well, this is a leading role, and he is on screen in every scene, I think, isn't he? It's always about him.
Yeah.
So what do you think about
him? I think he's great. I read some so-so reviews about his performance, and I'm like, maybe I'm watching a different movie. I thought he carries it. He's so expressive, and he's so silly, and he manages to keep this character likable. That's the tightrope. There they don't really nail it, but he does a lot towards making me forgive him and all of his craziness.
And he gets to play some goofy looks and that kind of thing, that type stuff.
But
all
the exaggerated fantasies
He's a straight
amazing.
man as well. He's funny,
yeah,
but he's got to play it straight.
But like his fantasies where he's reluctantly being attacked by all these beautiful women or whatever, I found it really funny.
Yeah.
I thought he was very funny.
One of whom is Carolyn Jones, who was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers the year after this. We covered that a long time ago. And then she's Morticia in the TV show, The Addams Family. She's the nurse that wants him so badly. And his secretary does as well. I believe that's Marguerite Chapman. And of course, we see a lot of things with Helen, and we see some of the fantasies as well with the girl / Marilyn. Yeah, I think Ewell's very good too. Mathau would probably have been fine, but I don't know if I could picture him in this. Even hearing that name, you're right, Lemon probably would have done too much, because Lemon often did too much, as he did in Mr. Roberts. I just said that 2 weeks ago. Good performance, but it's Jack Lemmon. I love Jack Lemmon very much.
He would have been great on stage.
He was a big actor.
Yeah.
And Ewell's pretty big, but he's not too big.
Mathau also, this is going to sound mean, but we need an actor that we have to at least a little bit wispily believe that Marilyn Monroe would give the time of day to. By the end of the movie, she kisses him and she means it, right? Mathau, come on. She's already leagues out of Tom Ewell's league, but Mathau's on a different planet.
Mathau's in a whole different sport.
Yes.
Leagues away.
R.I.P. to the legend Walter Matthau and everything. I like him just fine, but come on. And maybe because I'm picturing him in The Odd Couple, it's not just his looks. He doesn't have the lovability to pull it off, because he's always just by nature a little cantankerous. And in The Odd Couple, he comes across as a bit of a creep. He's so aggressively pursuing women. And of course, he could play it differently, but I've just never seen him be a nice guy.
Well, and that's what I was saying earlier, that those guys at the airport, when they've also sent their wives away.
Woman.
It's been seconds, and they're going after a woman or women, whatever. And his boss is doing the same thing. Mr. Brady is talking about that. I was out all night, and he's just coming into work to shave and to start his day now, and we got a lot of work ahead of us. You can't take vacation time. I don't know if he did anything as far as crossing the line or literally cheating on his wife, but he's at least having fun without his wife in a way that she probably wouldn't like. And Mathau, I can see being the kind of guy that would do that. You're right. But Ewell isn't really that dude.
Yeah. He's tempted to be that dude, but he just can't pull it off. So why do you think he doesn't cheat on her? Because this is the other thing that's missing. Does he love his wife? He doesn't seem to miss her company or his kids' company. He talks to himself all day long, and at no point is he like, God, I wish Helen was here. What is the story with that, do you think?
Well, you went away on vacation without me recently, and you took the dogs with you, too, the 2 foster dogs we have for the month there. They're long gone, by the way. If people wonder.
Is this where you're about to tell me you didn't miss me at all?
No, I was going to say was, it is a different feeling. Yes, it's nice to have the place to yourself, and you get to do what you want to do and everything. But I was working anyway, so I didn't get to do completely what I wanted to do. I had to be somewhere at a certain point. I had to leave here about 9:30 every night to get to work. That notion that you can eat when you want to eat and you can do what you want to do and it's quieter, that's all good. But you definitely notice that the other person's not there. I didn't have an inner monologue, but if I did, it would have been, oh, I do miss Bev and the dogs. And you're right, he never mentions that at all. In fact, he slips on Ricky's...
You could have just said you missed me and the dogs, but you had to be like, if I was this kind of person.
No, I'm saying I actually can refer to something that happened to me not that long ago. In fact, about a month ago, the beginning of this month, I guess it was, the end of June, early July. I can relate to him because it happened to me too. You were away and you took the kids.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I did. I had to go to work every night. What are you going to do? Just like he has to go to work through the whole thing. The husbands aren't seeming to get a vacation, while the wife and the kid, or in many families' cases, I'm sure kids, do get that vacation away. The husbands get to play with the random women and cheat on their wives, and that's really bad, obviously, but they're still working. It's a really strange thing, and it's supposed to be so hot in New York, so it's this weird combination of they're doing bad, but they're also being providers, and that was something that was supposed to be top of mind for everybody back in the 50s, so there's also that element.
It's America, so God knows they don't get vacation. Although they do talk about how
and his boss literally says, you're not taking vacation.
Yeah, they have a busy season. They have a September deadline. I like how they don't give him an actually important job. He's the executive at a publishing company, just like a bit of a Mickey Mouse publishing company that just publishes public domain stuff and tries to dress it up to make people buy it.
Yeah.
It's a good job, but it's not like he's that important.
This isn't Vogue or Cosmo. Or
yeah, exactly.
magazines.
The place is not going to fall apart without him, and even if it did fall apart, oh well.
And then that book he's supposed to be reviewing that night when he first meets the girl, Marilyn, is the 7-year itch. I don't think it's called the 7-year itch.
No,
but
there's a chapter about the male psyche. 7-year itch being that after 7 years of marriage, men just get the itch to step out on their wives, that they start to get bored with monogamy and are more likely to cheat, is the implication. I don't know that there's anything actually to it. What were we doing 7-year mark?
Pandemic.
The pandemic saved me from your infidelity, apparently.
Yeah.
You could have cheated, but you couldn't.
We got married in May of 2013, so it had been about 2 months since the pandemic really hit in 2020. 7 years for us. One of the elements, too, is more suggestive than anything else, but I do wonder if it's supposed to be that the movie has to dull this down or tame it up. When he looks at the picture that she supposedly posed for, she's wearing a bathing suit, and it's sexy, but it's just a bathing suit. She's not that hot.
So there's many shots
it's implied
where
that she's
you
naked.
can't see it, and it's implied that she's naked, and I'll bet you $1,000 that it was meant to be implied that she was nude, and then the censors were like, put a shot in there of her wearing a bathing suit.
That must be it.
I don't even want audiences imagining that she's a nude model. I don't want a character in your movie that we're supposed to like
because the
being
bathing
a nude model.
bathing suit she wears in that ad is fine. It's good. It's Marilyn Monroe. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But she's hotter in the first outfit he sees her in when she comes home and her fan cord gets stuck in the doorway, and certainly the 2 white dresses, than she is in that bathing suit picture. And yet he's going, blah,
yeah, everybody is, right. But also another suggestion that could be in his imagination, he already owned the book. So chances are good he's already seen that image. So when he conjures a perfect woman, he thinks of that sexy lady on the beach.
Ah, good point. I love when movies do play this notion, whether they meant to or not, or we imagine it maybe, that somebody's not real in the film.
I don't think the movie's saying that.
He could have seen her in the Dazzle Dent commercials because she does that too.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's actually shooting one at one point. Doesn't he see her on set?
Yeah, we see her on set. I guess he must be there because you're right. He's in every scene.
In the movie, of course, she does sleep in his bed, partly because it was so hot up there that she couldn't take it anymore. I think that's when she's pulled the nails out, and now we have the draft will go upstairs and would cool off her place too. That would really burn their AC budget in a big way.
That's what Helen's really going to be mad about.
Right. What's with this bill? He falls asleep on the couch and she's in his bed, which no one would know anyway, but he really didn't do anything wrong. In the movie, I guess in the play, maybe that's the night when they would have slept together. But in the movie, he's been wrapping that, and he did finish wrapping in a cheap way that
paddle.
The paddle, yeah, for the kid. I guess it's that next day when Tom comes to get the paddle. There's a nice little line there too, which I guess maybe came from the play. When it wasn't Marilyn Monroe, it was, what was her name again? I wrote it down somewhere here. Vanessa Brown. She played her in the play. I guess she was, I saw a picture. She looked good. Not Marilyn Monroe, but she was definitely very pretty. And I'm sure very sexy. But the line is, maybe it's Marilyn Monroe in the kitchen. And of course it actually is Marilyn Monroe in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb.
That was charming. But then Richard punches out Tom about the whole Helen thing that he completely imagined.
Yeah.
What does Tom do about that? Because the janitor, Mr. Krahulik, drags him out of the apartment, and then Richard takes off for the 2 weeks. That guy's going to want revenge. Why'd you punch me? What's that about? I didn't do anything wrong.
At the very least, when he shows up at the Shiner back in Maine, and Helen says what happened. Well, I came to your apartment. There was a beautiful blonde woman there. I don't know if you know her. And your husband punched me out cold on the spot.
A lot of questions have to be answered.
What happens next is that Richard succumbs to this obviously looming mental illness of delusion and gives in and becomes completely delusional at all times.
So Marilyn Monroe, we covered, as I said before, in All About Eve and Some Like It Hot. She was in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes before this, which I haven't seen in a long time. I remember her being pretty charming. Bus Stop, I think, was the same year, maybe the year after this, actually. And interestingly, considering so many actors, certainly now, but even then, maybe more so in the 50s, even big stars did a lot of TV, whether it be they had their own show, like Tom Ewell did. At one point, he had his own show. Marilyn Monroe's credits, not one TV show at all.
She was a movie star, baby.
But still, even movie stars tended to do at least some TV, but she never did. And of course, she was a problem during this production. I wasn't sure if she was at this point. She was a great actress and an icon and all that kind of stuff. More of an icon than a great actress, I guess.
A real pain in the butt.
But she was already that bad. She was way worse by Some Like It Hot when she was, I think, drinking, but also just so unprofessional. But Billy Wilder's thing was when you got something good out of her, it was gold. It was worth the incredible pain in the behind. By the way, I mentioned that she's never named. We know that, of course. We've been calling her Marilyn, but she doesn't have a name. She's just the girl. I just saw Daddy-O yesterday, the movie with Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn. Basically a two-hander with them in a cab the whole time. Dakota Johnson is sublime in this movie.
Oh,
And
wow.
wow. I knew she was pretty. She is eye-poppingly beautiful in this movie. I think it's one of her better performances. One of her
I thought when you meant her performance was sublime, but you're saying she was so
no, performance and her looks.
Oh, okay.
Both. I think she's better than maybe her mother, and certainly better than her grandmother, Tippi Hedren. And I bring it up because she has no name either. She learns his name, Sean Penn's name, and the name he gave himself, and then another name he says later on. We never know her name. But she's very good in Daddy-O. I was actually pretty impressed with the film. Ewell was in Adam's Rib, the Hepburn and Tracy movie I covered last year, but only did a few other movies in general, more TV, had his own show. And he won a 1953 Tony for playing Richard. Evelyn Keyes, who plays the wife, Helen, was in Best Picture winners Gone with the Wind long before this, and then Around the World in 80 Days the year after this. Robert Strauss, who is Mr. Krahulik, who's in the movie, 3 or 4 times. He was Animal in Stalag 17 2 years before this and got nominated for an Oscar for that performance. He's the comic relief. He's somewhat funny in the movie. I'm sure it was hilarious back in 53. He was also in The Bridges at Toko Ri, which I believe was a hit movie with William Holden the same year as this came out. We do see the author of The 7-Year Itch, or whatever that book's actually called, Oscar Homolka. He's the novelist who shows up in Richard's office at one point. He was in Ball of Fire. I covered that a year or two ago. And was nominated for a supporting actor Oscar for I Remember Mama. Marguerite Chapman, who plays his secretary. This was her second last movie. It was only in about 40 films and about the same amount of TV. And then Sonny Tufts, Tufts, does play Tom Mackenzie. I didn't recognize much else he did, including his work on TV. For Wilder, this is our 8th movie now we've covered of his that he directed. Double Indemnity, The Lost Weekend, Sunset Boulevard, Stalag 17, Sabrina, Some Like It Hot, and The Apartment. And he also wrote Ninotchka for Lubitsch and Ball of Fire for Hawks. Wow. He also directed Ace in the Hole, The Spirit of St. Louis, Witness for the Prosecution, 1, 2, 3 with Cagney, and The Fortune Cookie. If I just mentioned those 5 movies, you'd say, that's a pretty good career. Never mind the actual true classics that we've covered. So we haven't covered those other ones, Ace in the Hole and so on, but they're good too. George Axelrod, it was his play, 1952 play they based this on, so he co-wrote with Wilder. Axelrod wrote also on Breakfast at Tiffany's and The Great Manchurian Candidate. What a weird resume that is, so different, especially Manchurian Candidate in either Breakfast at Tiffany's or this. And the producers were Billy Wilder himself, who was often his own producer, and Charles Feldman, who produced Streetcar Named Desire and was also an executive producer on Red River, the Howard Hawks film from a few years before this, maybe 7 years before. The film was 2.55:1, so bona fide, true, huge widescreen.
Is that CinemaScope? What is the...
I guess it must be, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
so
only
unusual for a comedy.
2 or 3 years in. Right, exactly, yeah. And the movie was in color, even though Wilder wanted to shoot black and white. He tended to shoot black and white, but Marilyn
Because you have
Monroe's
a hit play, a hit director,
and Monroe's contract
Marilyn
insisted,
Monroe.
yeah,
Oh,
that she
really?
was shot in color. When they did Something Like It Hot, it was black and white, only because the makeup they had to use on Curtis and Lemon when they're women looked terrible and weird and everything. It was Frankenstein-esque, I guess, because he was green only when they shot the movie. It's black and white. No one knew at the time when you saw the movie that he was green. It made him look better in grayscale. Same kind of thing with Lemon and Curtis, I guess. But generally speaking, her contract said, nope, got to be in color. And it did make sense for this film. It is a nice-looking movie, I think. Milton Krasner shot it. He shot many classics, but the only thing we've ever covered before is All About Eve. So he's obviously a Fox guy, which I guess also Hugh Fowler was, because he won an Oscar for Patton for cutting that. He was the editor here. And also cut Planet of the Apes. Both of those are Schaffner movies, and both of them are Fox movies also, which was also deep into the 60s and early 70s, actually, long after this came out. And Alfred Newman, I believe, was also a Fox guy. He won 9 Oscars.
He's the composer, right?
He's a composer. He did the music. In his filmography, we've covered Wuthering Heights, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Grapes of Wrath, Ball of Fire, and All About Eve. And the last technical person I'm going to mention here is Saul Bass, who designed the opening titles. But even though we know him from the Hitchcock films, especially Psycho and North by Northwest, and I think Vertigo as well, and then worked with Marty in the 90s, Goodfellas, and Casino, I think, and Cape Fear maybe as well. But Saul Bass opening titles here, never again with Wilder. I didn't read why. And the opening titles were fun. They were cute, charming, I guess. So what did you think of the look, the cutting, the writing, the music, the producing, all that stuff? Wilder's direction?
The technicals are great. This is a true Hollywood studio film. It has all
True
the bells and-
pros.
True pros, yeah, exactly. And the set design's incredible. I love that apartment.
I do too.
So many details. It's so rich in the depth of it.
We stayed in 2 different places in New York. We went there twice. The first time we were in a, I guess, more modern bed and breakfast, and it was good. Yeah. The second time, I thought it was going to be something like this.
It was.
It was not. But it looked in the pictures like it'd be something. Maybe I had this movie in my mind in a little bit.
I think maybe once upon a time, many years before, it had been like that.
It had that feel of this charming type of thing. This is a small place, especially for 3 people to live in. You asked me when it was over, where's the kids stay? Well, we do see in some of the shots, they basically turn the set around for a lot of the second half of the movie, and now we're seeing towards the bedroom, which we don't see early on. Maybe that's a bit of a play on the apartment when, as Roger Ebert points out in the apartment review he wrote many years ago, the bedroom in the apartment is so often in the background as if it's hinting at this is where all the stuff happens in this movie with all these people that this young guy, C.C. Baxter's letting into his place, and they're sleeping with these women, and he wants to sleep with Shirley MacLaine but never does. But it's always in the background of shots, or often at least, in the apartment. We don't see the bedroom in this place for a long time in the background, in the first half anyway, because the camera's facing towards the kitchen and then that little back deck type area, which had a charming feel to it. I think I would have liked being out there if I lived there. But then in the second half, or maybe the last third even, you do see the camera more so facing towards the bedroom. And maybe that's a suggestion that this is where this could be heading.
That's a great point.
We talked about what happens next already, and I do wonder what's going to happen when Tom rats him out. What will Helen say? But I love the fact that Helen's imagination for him, he imagines his own wife just going, you're a fool. Not that she doesn't respect him, but in his own mind, she doesn't take him seriously, which is funny because in a lot of people's imaginations, the wife is either a shrew or she's a totalitarian or she's so understanding. But this is somebody who's just sarcastic with him.
Yeah.
It's a nice touch.
Not the Jiminy Cricket, but kind of a little voice of reason in his head.
He often imagines her, too. Mm-hmm. And, of course, he imagines her with Tom on a hayride getting it on, so that's not good. But generally speaking, when he imagines her...
I kind of want Helen to get a little something while her husband's carrying on. I wonder how many marriages were harmed by this movie. When I go away in the summer and you're working, is this what you do?
We've been married for 7 years. I've got the itch. The movie said I could have the itch. All right, then. Last thoughts on the 7-year itch, our last movie of July here on the 28th. We're halfway through summer, I guess, give or take now. Halfway through the
We're more than halfway through. Halfway point would be July 15th.
I think of July and August being a bona fide summer, but...
Oh, no, now I have to think about it. Anyways, no, I think you're right. This is the halfway point of summer. I know this is a lesser Wilder, and he would agree, but it's still pretty fun. Just for watching for the 2 actors and their performances, it really is a shame that it couldn't overcome those code restrictions. They probably either never should have made it, or like Wilder said he should have done is wait till the 70s. If he had known the 70s.
Yeah, that's right. He said that. That's right.
Yeah, if I could have made this movie in the 70s, it would have been so good, but you didn't. And this is what we got.
It's still fun. It's a good summer movie to watch, especially when it's really hot. I thought maybe we'd see more sweat, literally sweating.
Imagine if Richard is sweating the whole time. They have to do everything not to let him look like a creep, and sweat would put him over the edge.
Well, true, because I covered Mr. Roberts the same year this movie came out, and Henry Fonda, because the movie's set on a boat in the South Pacific, he's often just drenched in sweat. They all are. Mr. Roberts and 7-Year Itch are both about people that are just dying in the heat, with the iconic subway skirt being blown up, which is a little overrated. It's not that incredible moment in the actual story. It's more what people see in the images.
Yeah, if you grow up with that iconic image and then you see the movie, you're like, that's it, huh?
That's exactly it. Yeah. You're right. Because I remember thinking that when I first saw this, that, is this censored? And it wasn't. That's
it is her legs, right? Or
it is her.
It is her. So it's not like
Joe DiMaggio,
because it looks like they're cutting around a body double.
No, Joe DiMaggio was still married to her at this point. He was mad because they were shooting this in New York. At least, I think they reshot some of the stuff, but they were trying to get this in New York. Some of it, I think, was that scene anyway. They come out of the theater. I believe that was at least. And DiMaggio was mad that there was just 1,000 people around. Marilyn Monroe, catcalling. And then she did something like this, and he was really bothered by it. It's a good movie. It's fun. Just isn't as hilarious as Wilder's best movies, like Some Like It Hot or The Apartment, or I don't know. There's even humor in Sunset Boulevard as much as this. This is funnier than that, I guess. But we laughed a fair amount. Marilyn's so cute. Ewell is just right for the character they wrote. And it is interesting, as we said when it was over, that Marilyn Monroe, despite the fact she's so iconic for the sexiness, is also just adorable. I think I said this to you. I want to more hug her than I want to eat her. So that was how we saw the 7-Year Itch. When we return in 7 days, it'll be August, and it'll be the civic holiday here in Canada. The civic holiday. What an important day. That means we're due for another listicle. It's been a long time, and those shows tend to get more downloads than regular episodes do. We did a couple last summer, and they generally did better than the other episodes did. Our longtime listeners know that when this podcast started, what we were doing was reviewing all 123 movies on the AFI's 1998 and 2007 Top 100 list. So the 100 movies in 98 and they had 23 more that made the list. They knocked 23 off, but we covered all of them in chronological order from 2013 to 2015. Many truly great films did not make either of those lists, though. So what we'll do is we'll sort through the 300 or so, I didn't really count how many it is, but 300 or so movies that didn't make the cut either time, and each of us will rank those as a top 100. We'll zip through most of the ones we'd rank 100 down to 11 or whatnot. The order isn't that important. I actually have categories I've come up with just this afternoon. I came up with an idea of having be categories and stuff. But then we'll spend more significant time breaking down the top 10, ending, of course, with what we think should be the number one movie of the not 100. So the not quite 100 movies. We used to do the not 100 project.
That would be the 101st, right?
101st to 100 or 200, I guess.
Yeah.
And there isn't really a coming attractions trivia question for this one, but I'll just throw this out there. Which do people think will be the number one choice for Bev, and which do they think will be the number one choice for me?
So for the answer to that question, tune in next week for our not 100.
Not quite 100.
Not quite 100, our 101 to 200 project. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe. There are hundreds of episodes available for you to check out.
678.
That's right. So if you like us and you'd like to support the podcast, the best way you can do that is by leaving us a rating and a review. You can also support the podcast by going to sparkplug.coffee/HYES for freshly roasted premium coffee. That HYES will get you a one-time 20% discount. And you can also find us on YouTube. Our channel is at HYES Ellis, and we'd love to hear from you guys. There's a few ways to reach us, starting with Twitter. I'm at Bev Ellis Ellis. Ryan is at MovieFiend51. We're also on Blue Sky. You can find us as Bev Ellis Ellis and Ryan-Ellis, and our email address is haveyoueverseenpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast wasn't just elegant. It was just adequate.
It was delicate.
Or was it delicate? No, it was adequate.
And cut.